Nurses and midwives of Reddit. Have you ever tried to talk new parents out of a baby name? What was it? Boss's friend named their kid Monster Galilea last name. Nurse tried to talk them out of it. Called in child services to talk them out of it. They insisted. Kid goes by Galilea. Honestly, I kind of like the sound of it for an adult or a performer's name, but being a kid named Monster has to be rough in school. My boyfriend's grandmother wanted to name her daughter Sunshine. The midwife said that wasn't allowed because it wasn't a real name and his grandmother had no other backup baby names. So, a few minutes later, when she heard someone down the hall screaming Tina, she named her daughter Tina because she couldn't think of anything else on the spot. I once met a dude named Lovey. It was a family name. I think it was especially cute because he was such a big tough guy. My brother talked my mother out of naming me Mulan because he had a major crush on her and didn't think a sack of potatoes deserved to be given her name. My boyfriend was nearly called Egbert, but predominantly Egg for short. Glad they decided against it. I'm neither a nurse or midwife, but I once was paid to design birthday cards for a kid named Mileage, pronounced my liege, like you would refer to a king. Both the pronunciation and the spelling made me question why I deal with this customer base. I worked at a registrar for a while, and among the birth certificates I got, some of the standouts I saw were Killer, Syphilis and Sweet Prayer Sunrise. This one was a boy. Before I was born, my dad wanted to name my Sky, but he thought that replacing the Y with an I would be cute. Thank God my mom isn't stupid, or I may have been named Ski. My classmate's mother was a maternity nurse, and she has a couple who wanted to name their son Colin, but wanted to give him a unique spelling for it. I do not understand why parents do this. It doesn't make a boring name more interesting. All it does is set your child up for lifelong inconvenience. They spelled it out for her to put on the birth certificate COLON. They tried to name their son Colon, as in the organ attached to Uranus. When my classmate's mother explained this to them, they were painfully embarrassed and asked her to write it down with the normal spelling instead. I don't think they'll ever live it down. As a family medicine resident, I personally delivered 2 different girls named Khaleesi. This was around 2016, well before season 8. I imagine there might be some buyer's remorse on the parents' part at this point. My uncle wanted to name his daughter Raider God. I'm glad they settled on Jada. My dad loves Steve Enix and wanted to name all of us Rhiannon, but my mom wouldn't let him. So my oldest sister's name ended up being Stevie Nicole, but now people always assume she's a guy when they see the name Stevie. I'm neither of these, but I had a classmate in university whose name was Meganathan. To date I don't know why Nathan failed to suffice. My dad wanted to name me Esembit, the Swedish name for Snow White, but in the end my parents named me something else. Had my younger brother been a girl, he'd been named Runrosa, meaning thorn rose, and is the Swedish name on Sleeping Beauty. Never did get to the bottom what my dad's obsession with princesses was all about. Not a nurse, but as a med student, a patient wanted to name her child Mudpiles. The nurses silently protested and waited a few days. Mom changed her mind. My mom is a public school librarian, and the cringiest name she has encountered so far is a girl named Lesme, pronounced like Leslie, but with an M. My ex-husband didn't think it was fair that girls could be named Grace or Hope etc., and seriously suggested pestilence, war or plague for a boy. His choice for a girl was Tangerine. Fortunately we never had any children. I work in a music store that offers lessons and rents instruments. We have a list of the oddest child names: January, Quest, Sixt, Shebra, Battle, Cheyenne are just a few on there. The best one was Olivia, pronounced Olivia. When speaking with the grown mother, she said that the mom wanted to name her Olivia, but the father hated the name. Dad saw a bottle of Aleve on the counter, so he and the mother compromised and came up with Olivia. I once had a student named Linoleum. Some midwife dropped the ball on that one. My brother wanted to name our soon to be younger brother Corn Peas, and our parents almost went with it because they felt bad about asking for his input and then rejecting it. Fortunately they got over that and passed on the name. Not a midwife, but lived with a student midwife when I was a student. The first set of twins she delivered got called Red and Blue. When I worked in a boring admin job dealing with applications from members of the public, I came across Jessica Rabbit. Saw her passport and everything. I just hope she chose that later in life, rather than parents landing her with it. The worst ones I saw in that job were combinations made by women getting married and taking their husband's surnames, so can't really be blamed on the parents. I was almost named Cinderall. I have no idea what my dad was smoking at the time. My mother, who has an odd, to say the least, sense of humor, wanted to name my baby brother Richard Rusty. Our surname is Ford. She was determined to call him Itchy Rusty Ford. Tickled herself shitless through the pregnancy. And look, it was funny. I mean, I was 12. But everyone thought she was just being her usual goofy self. Apparently, she got attached to it, and at some point Dad just said, "Duck, no. We are not naming the baby that." They settled on something much more appropriate. Although, these days I think the little shit might have been better named Itchy Rusty, laughing my freaking butt off. I had a co-worker named Trina. When she was pregnant, she told me that she and her husband had decided to name the baby Latrine. I had to explain to her that she was naming her poor baby after the hole in the ground that soldiers shit into. She was horrified and changed it to Katrina. 2 days after the kid was born, Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. Working as a nurse on overnights, I got called to OB to help out Alet. One name will always stick with me because of how unfortunate it is for the kid and how ridiculous it all is. The mom was deep in meth and other substance abuse, and she told us she wanted him named Zion. We were like, oh cool, no problem. So we asked her to fill out the paperwork of everything for us to submit and put in the chart, and she wrote down Zion. She looked us dead in the eyes and said, "The V is silent." She also gave him 5 middle names because she didn't know which one was the father, so he got them all. My mother's name. My grandmother wanted to name her Ishbel and my grandfather wanted to name her Laura. So they got a baby name book and the first name they agreed on would be her name. Her name is Wanda. I was young and stupid in the 80s when my daughter was born. I really wanted to name her Frisbee because I was just certain that Frisbee last name was going to be the coolest girl in school. Nothing ever came of my bad idea. My daughter's name is Jennifer. My co-worker went to school with a girl named Fallopia. I feel sorry for her, especially when she takes biology classes and they talk about fallopian tubes. Not a nurse, but my mom had to talk my dad out of wanting to name me Prudence. I wouldn't have mind being called Prudence, but that's just me. Now I have an even weirder name that nobody knows how to pronounce because of a popular TV show. Again, not quite what was being asked, but a friend of mine was almost called Apollo. To be fair, he was born on the day of the first moon landing in 1969, and his dad is Greek. His mom put her foot down, though, and he ended up Alexander, which is still a good Greek name, okay. Technically Macedonian, but the Greeks claim him too. My ex wanted to name my son Jagger, pronounced either Jagger or Jaeger or Shotend Jer. That was a number. Everyone talked me out of naming my daughter Evelyn and nickname Evie. It's a family name, but apparently it's for old women only, lol. When I was in basic training back in the early 2000s, there was a guy whose last name was Starcrusier. Found out from one of his division mates that his full name was Mercury's son Starcrusier, and that his dad had apparently was a massive Star Wars geek after seeing the original way back in the 70s. That he legally changed his last name to Starcrusier. This guy was not in my division, but was in one of the ones that was housed in the same building my division was in. So I had seen him a few times, turns out he was also married, and she was there in a different division at the time. In my culture, grandfathers of your father's side were given the right to name you, so he named me, the youngest son, after him, Edward. Standard name though. He told everyone that I was now Edward and everybody flipped out on my grandpa for giving me such an old-fashioned name. I mention so you know, their perceptions on Western things and names might be kinda funny. Nobody decided to change my name though. I don't know why they just let it through. But my parents just started calling me Jason since I was a kid, since they thought it would be weird to have two Edwards in the family. Now I just introduce myself as Jason, but now I feel like I'll just go by Edward so I can stop explaining why I go by Jason. So this is what my mother told me. At first she tried to name me Belle, her favorite Disney princess, and my dad wanted to name me Misty. Then it was Misty Belle. Then it was Belle Jubilee. Then they decided on my name with the compromise of Belle as my middle name. It was right after they decided that the girl who was sharing a room with my mum, I was born with the orange skin thing. So they had me and her stay for a while, wrote down my entire name, including my dad's last name, for her baby, and rewrote to make it fancy. Mind you, she only heard the name, so she didn't know how to spell my last name, but this is what she came up with: Sabrina Bilirulsh. My mom found out and looked at her like she was nuts. Got into a mini fight because my mom said that was stupid and the girl said, if you call that name stupid then you've done your baby for life with a stupid name. I guess she was trying to show my mom my name was stupid. Luckily her other half stepped in and signed the certificate with Lucy Ann instead. Like who TF takes the entire name of someone else's baby, including last name, and try to use it for their baby. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,